Okay, it's me again. My books. Are there any preppers or stockpilers out there who are major book freaks? Because I am. Uh, when I lived in the city and then when I moved to that little town where I was living at, I had about 800 books. And um, I had this big, huge yard sale and we had sold tons of stuff. I had given away about half my books and sold, given and sold about half of my books. So when I had moved, I only had about 400 books or so. And then living there for a few years, I built up my book collection again. So, and it's not like, romance, Harlequin type books. From my university days, I really got to enjoy doing research and things like that, and learning about different cultures and history and all kinds of stuff. So a lot of my books are on things like history and social issues that affect people around the world, and there's stuff on herbalism and home remedies, and there's social work stuff, there's stuff, all different kinds of topics, different religions, different cultures and ethnic groups, and um, different biographies about people, and all different kinds of things like that. So um, some of my books are very precious to me. Some of them are just kind of for reference or whatever, and just an interesting kind of read. And some I really do cherish. So um, my plan, because of where we live, and we live in such a strategic place at this particular moment in time, and if we do move, because that's what Mike would like, he would like to have a three-bedroom apartment instead of a two-bedroom. I'm not too sure what location where we would be, but where we are now, we would be like just a hop, skip, and not even a jump out of the city from where we are. It would be not a problem to leave. The plan is to get a truck, and also have a car. We do have a car right now. Um, but I want to get a beautiful pickup truck and load up the truck with the food and hightail it out of here. And I would load up the car with my most precious books and take those with me. um, you can't eat books, I realize that. But, let's just say something did happen and the world as we know it no longer existed. Let's say there was no order. Let's say civilization as we know it has totally collapsed. Um, it would be really sad to see humanity de-evolve to the point where, reading was non-existent because nobody knew how to read anymore, or there was no appreciation for the arts or the culture, or um, for books. I love books, right? And I'm not talking about, packing up all your, you know, Archie comic books or anything like that, but I'm talking about, like some of the great writers of history. I think it's important to try to preserve what we can, whether it's Shakespeare or Hemingway or whoever, right? I think things like that are important, to have diverse books on different fields, different topics, because, that will allow the readers, so future generations, the opportunity to have like a really open-minded perspective on various topics, whether it's on, history or medicine or whatever. I just think it's really good to have a really diverse um, understanding of things, so that you're not so narrow-minded and judgmental, and it just opens you up to new ways of thinking and new ideas. And I think that's really important, because if society collapsed as we know it, and you know if it became a real doomsday thing where there's just kind of like these Neanderthal type people, like I'm thinking, when I say that, I don't mean like cavemen running around, but that type of mentality, like, oh, let's just stock up on guns and knives and shoot to kill. And if you got that kind of mentality, you're already de-evolving the way I see it. Yeah, it's good to protect yourself and your loved ones. I understand that too. um, but we need to do more than that. We need to preserve as much as we can should anything like that happen. um, the arts, the culture, languages, um, the history of humanity, of the world as we know it. And if we don't take the time to do that, to have that appreciation, to try to preserve what we can in written form, and not on some little USB stick, because if there is no power, that's useless. But in written form, and to continue to teach future generations, how to read and write and do math. And there's kids these days that don't even know how to do math. Everything's done for them, or they can't even spell properly, especially with all the texting. um, you know to preserve that, otherwise it will be like a bunch of cave people running around. And it's like, are we going to de-evolve? And is everybody going to start operating more from a reptilian mindset than from a more intelligent perspective, if you know what I mean? So for me, my books are precious. So my idea is, when I do get all my brand new bookshelves, um, one bookshelf in particular will be, even if I always put my books in alphabetical order and by genre. So um, with the exception for the whole stockpile in case anything happens, but one bookshelf will be just for my most beloved prized books, including, it was a Bible. It's like about that thick. I'll have to show it to you. Unfortunately, in the move, it literally split in half. It's so old. It belonged to my grandmother. And that I would take with me, because what she had done when she had been given that Bible, I think it was in the 50s or the 60s, my mom gave it to her. It's this great big giant red Bible, but anytime there was a marriage or a death or um, things like that, she would put those little announcements, whether it was like a new baby being born, a little baby picture, you get that birth announcement thing, or you get a wedding invitation, or maybe there's a card from a family member who had passed away and you went to the funeral and you got one of those little cards and stuff like that. But all that she would tuck into various places within the Bible. So that Bible became not just a Bible, but it's also a record of our, you know, a very loose kind of record of family history for us, because there's telegrams in there from like the war even that she had saved before that, and I found the one telegram was in there. Um, there's just these amazing little tidbits of history that are tucked into the pages of the Bible, and I mean, that would definitely come with me no matter what. And there's a few other things, a few other books that would be, no matter what happened, I would make room for them. And so I want to have just one bookshelf of my most prized possessions and my most prized books that I cherish the most, so that if anything happened, I would know to grab those ones, and the rest, I guess, if there's no room, they would get left behind, and if there's room, I'll bring what I can. Make sense? So, is there anybody else out there that, you're thinking about, things like that, like trying to preserve the arts, the culture, the languages, history in some aspect, but not on digital format? Is there anybody else out there doing that, or is this just one crazy idea that I thought of and nobody else is doing? There's got to be somebody out there that's doing that as well. Of course, making, a lot of people make photocopies of their ID or their mortgage or whatever it is, that kind of stuff like that. But I'm thinking even further beyond that. Like, as a species, are we going to try to preserve our history in some aspect, um, or are we going to just let that kind of crumble and disintegrate into nothing, as a species? You know, so, just a thought. Um, Yeah. Well, I'm gonna split, and we'll talk to you guys later. So we'll see you guys on the flip side.